Hello and good evening. My name's Michael Thayer. Fall 2017, my advisor is Dr. Gary Anderson, and this is my MLS Comprehensive Exam. Alright, so our agenda this evening, or morning, or whenever you're reading this, is first we're going to have a description of the issue or problem, have a literature review, proposed solutions, discussion, and analysis of assumptions, evidence, and limitations of proposed solutions, and conclusions. Alright, so first we're going to be looking at Midwest City Schools test score data, which as we can see here has plateaued. We're going to take a closer look at it in just a moment. In some areas it's also fallen in the past year. Students are lacking facility with thinking, communication, independence, and persistence. Over the next 20 minutes we'll be looking at and analyzing from multiple perspectives, which include test data, demographic data, perceptual data, and school processes data. These data will enlighten our root causes of our current challenge of raising test scores and increasing students' thinking skills. We'll analyze reliable sources of information on how to address those root causes. Finally, we'll submit a plan for how to meet this challenge that focuses on a school-wide paradigm shift toward a multicultural, language-focused, and multilateral culture of thinking. Let's start by taking a closer look at the test data. So, we had previous efforts at this school to secure the cooperation of the staff to focus on improving standardized ELA and math test scores through a focus on teaching to standards, test-taking skills, and accountability to common exam scores. So, has this failed? Do we need to continue the training further in this direction, or do we need a directional shift? Also, securing the cooperation of the staff seems a far cry from inspiring the staff to a shared vision. So if the teachers do not believe in it, neither will the students. Let's take a closer look at that testing data before we return to those questions. Alright, so here we can see the percentages of students who are performing below grade level, level 1, at the at grade level but not college ready, level 2. And by the way, level 1 is the orange one, and level 2 is yellow. And at or above grade level and college ready, levels 3 and 4, that's the green and the blue. And those are on our math tests. So in the top two rows, we see that the percentage of the underperforming students at Midwest City School increased between 2015 and 2016. In the middle two rows, we see that at the district level an increase in both underperforming and overperforming students, and a decrease in passing but not college-ready students. The state's data follows the same trend as the district. Let's take a look at our ELA scores. Our ELA standardized scores show similar trends as we just saw in math. At all levels, we see an increase in the percentage of underperforming and college-ready students, and at the district and state level, we see a shrinking of the percentage of students performing at grade level but who are not college-ready. Note that the number increased at Midwest City School. So really this data shows an epidemic widening of the achievement gap at the state, district, and building level. More and more of our students are being successful, but more and more of our students are failing. Why is this? So, is economics the problem? Notice that in this table, that the percentage of economically disadvantaged students has decreased from 2015 to 2016. So essentially, in this case, the answer is no. There are now fewer students in poverty, but our test scores have plateaued and, in some cases, fallen. So, if wealth is not the key, what is? Let's talk about ethnicity. Here we see a recent history of the district's ethnic demographics. Between 2012 and 2016, we see the district changing from 68.8% white students and 26.3% Hispanic students to 49.24% white and 47.91% Hispanic. The number of Hispanic students in the district is rising. Let's compare this district trend with what is happening at Midwest City School. So, from 2012 to 2015, the white and Hispanic percentages remain about the same. Take a moment to absorb the change that occurs between 2015 and 2016. We see a dramatic decrease in white students and an equally dramatic rise in Hispanic students. But what does this have to do with test scores? Well, what we know so far is, look at the differences between these data. Based on what we've seen, we may wonder why an increased Hispanic population would lower our school's test scores. Or for that matter, why would it lead to a larger percentage of college-ready students and a larger percentage of students performing under grade level? It seems kind of odd. To begin with, let us suppose that our Hispanic students are to some extent English learners. That is, English is not their first language, and their comprehension of English might be several years behind that of their non-Hispanic peers. If that is the case, we need to take a look at what it means to be an English learner in a school environment. So, English learner needs at a glance. This is a great quotation, so I'm going to read it out loud. English learners face a formidable task when they attend mainstream classrooms where English is the medium of instruction. Regular classroom teachers need to be able to teach content effectively, while at the same time supporting full language development of ELs by including instructional techniques that make learning comprehensible to students. So we need to see some examples of these instructional strategies and assess the extent of their use by teachers at MCS. EL pedagogy. English learners who have experienced different events and cultural contexts interpret the world in unique ways. Moreover, language is the primary tool learners use to symbolize their unique experiences and thoughts and to communicate with others. So Brooks and Karathanos offer us a window into the complexity of teaching English learners. Language and culture are not handicaps, but rather they are the foundation upon which we all build our learning, and the means by which we create that meaning. So, to what extent are teachers at MCS providing language instruction in ways that are culturally relevant to our students? Let's take a look at what they say. So, from the document that we have, the documentation I have so far as principal, I have the following quotations. The school has a very experienced staff of 24 faculty with a range of instruction approaches and skill sets. The most experienced staff are fairly traditional and seem to be the most reticent to change and perhaps to technology at times. Teachers are observed teaching in fairly traditional ways, lots of teacher talk and worksheets. Some students thrive in this environment and complete their work dutifully, while others fall behind. Students are well behaved for the most part, and efforts to maintain effective classroom management skills have been a priority in the past. What information do we see here that is relevant to our problem of low test scores and thinking skills, and how does it relate to our changing ethnic demographics? Contrast the school's traditional teaching methods with the needs we have established for English learners. Also, we see a sink or swim environment in which little or no support is offered to failing students. Let's take a closer look at two of MCS's teachers' classrooms. So my observations from their classrooms are up on the screen right now. Both Miss Sheridan and Miss Lee were teaching the same topic, the phases of the moon. While their lesson content was identical, each teacher's approach was unique. I conclude from these observations that our students are not getting the same message in all of their classes. As a school, we do not offer a unified culture of thinking. Instead, each teacher has the autonomy to approach teaching in a way that suits his or her own style. Let's continue our analysis of teacher-related data by listening to the teachers themselves. In a recent survey, staff shared their thoughts on classroom culture, student thinking, communication, current resources, and overall perceptions of school success. The Midwest City COT survey data. So basically this was a survey for the teachers at our school. And I did notice some irregularity with how the staff approaches the topic of culture. Let's take a look. So on the slide you see it says the qualitative question about classroom culture shows teachers have different ideas of what culture of your classroom means. Some seem to have misunderstood the question to mean cultures in your classroom. So in other words, some teachers answered about the cultures that their students come from. Maybe some of my students are Hispanic, for example. Whereas other teachers read culture as what kind of rules and expectations and sort of ways of doing things are present in your classroom. So in other words, how do people talk to each other? How do people answer questions? What are the routines that we have as a class? How do we go about learning things in this class, this particular class? So those are two different ways that we're going to be talking about the word culture. And there seem to be both of those types of responses. We've got demographics and achievement data of the kids, and then some teachers describe a culture that has been created, established, and accepted by kids in the classroom as a culture unique to that room. More from the same staff survey. We got mixed responses about student thinking and communication. Most teachers offer detailed answers, including their expectations and some detailed student thinking processes, and a few teachers do not offer any detail about student thinking. Communication, there is some detail. Some staff want to improve respectful communication and time management, both with their students and as a school. Further data from teachers talks about resources. So what resources do we have available to us in this building already? Well, as you can see on the slide, we have quite a few things. One of the most interesting questions in this survey, I also found that it interesting that only 8 out of 24 teachers responded to this question. So this is some data that we might ask the question, why did only 8 teachers respond to the question of what resources do we have in the building already? In any case, as you can see from scrolling down to the bullet points, we see that our staff have identified that we've got Title I staff that help our students. Someone responded very optimistically about the book study on cultures of thinking, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. I'm also obviously on board. I'm a resource right now. And one teacher talks about how they are new to teaching in the district and they're not quite sure how to what resources are present in the school. Some other people talk about faculty and administration being resources, and the district and experienced staff. So really what we see here and what we need to continue emphasizing is that the teachers in the building, the adults working in the building, regardless of perceptions or where we're at right now, we have tons of potential to help students, and we're going to be the front line of helping students. So really we want to emphasize that component of resources, the resources that we have right now. It seems that the answers to the survey questions that we've just looked at, they vary greatly from teacher to teacher, meaning that there is not a unified teaching front at present. Students are not getting the same cultures of thinking from all teachers. Additionally, the categories where teachers rank themselves the lowest indicate a general need to document students' understanding of their own thinking over time as it relates to the global picture. So, further staff perceptions have identified ways in which we can improve. We see some general trends evident in the staff survey. We could improve our modeling of thinking language, such as elaborate, evaluate, and so on. We could make connections to big pictures, global contexts. Also, students should be reflecting more on how their thinking changes over time. Thinking routines need to be so ingrained that students no longer need explanations of how to go about using them. We need to use a variety of ways to document student thinking, including technology. Now I'd like to turn to, we've identified a lot of the needs of the school, a lot of the staff perceptions, teacher perceptions. I would like to turn to the district, just to make sure that we're all aware, pulling the lens back a little bit, that the things we're talking about right now are actually quite closely aligned to district priorities. So if you take a look at this slide, it shows some of our district goals and priorities include global citizenship, and ESL program enhancement, including coordinators and instructors for ESL, competitive teacher salaries for attracting and retaining high-quality teachers, mentoring program for new teachers, iPads and other interactive electronic devices provided to staff and students, and ongoing teacher training for best practices. So as you can see, the goals and needs and goals to achieve those needs and reach those needs are very closely aligned with what the district has identified as our district-wide needs. We're just about out of time in the first part of this presentation, but in part 2 we're going to get started by talking about proposed solutions to the problems that we have identified so far. I look forward to seeing you in part 2.